business and how it's recovering now from a downturn, or because you were providing such basic services like power, were you relatively insulated against a downturn in profit?
Well, compassionate behavior is the thing that everybody wants. There's nobody in the world who doesn't want anybody else to have loving kindness for him, sympathetic joy, be calm in the storm, and have compassion. So I think that is the natural way of being. And I'm
feeling very calm just sitting next to you, actually.
I think, and so I'm completely convinced that way of working will be much more productive and effective and profitable and good for society than a way that is not compassionate, that like one lady told me when she was in a certain bank, that her strongest competitor was sitting next to her. We want her best friend to sit next to her, or who sits next to her, the best friend, because we have to be outside-oriented for the benefit we could create. And so we have to work together as one team, as you see with any soccer team that has this one hero and he only keeps the ball for himself. They will always lose against the one that plays as a team. And I love the team sport. I love to play, in this case, polo. And there, it's a team. You can, with a kind of normal team, you can outdo others who have the star who wants to do everything by himself. So I think especially in crisis, we have to all be together. And then, of course, women are much superior in this togetherness than men in principle or in general.
Actually, you raise a very interesting topic, and I'd like both of you to comment on it. And I don't know where Jim is. He had a better signal in the lift, I think, than he does in the ward. But creating teams, that's a really important part of corporate success, right? And society's success. And it also helps nurture corporate culture. And building teams and maintaining and growing corporate culture are huge issues before COVID, but even bigger issues now, because there's been some dilution of that, because we are spending so much time online. And I think that if you're looking at a screen with 16 people on it, it's not the same as one person on it, or not the same as 16 people in a room, where it's much more natural to sort of pitch in. So how do you nurture both team building and the protection and nourishment of your corporate culture at a time when we're all still experiencing Zoom fatigue? And he's back, so that's great, Jim. Oh no, he's gone. No, he's back. So do you want to answer that one for me?
I'll
give me your thoughts.
So Angela, I mean, just one point is a term I read recently, right? We've talked about glass ceilings. I think there's a term now called a Zoom ceiling as well, because that's sort of the barrier that we face these days. It is very difficult to build that culture. I think in the world of PwC, we employ 300,000 people across the world. And in the course of
How many in Asia?
About 100,000 in Asia Pacific. And in the last year or so, we've also heard about the Great Resignation, and we've not been spared with that. And we've had 100,000 people leave and 100,000 people join as well. So across the whole globe.
That's a huge cultural
Absolutely
shift.
Right. And many of you who are familiar with professional services will know that there is a general degree of turnover, but it's really been exacerbated over the course of the last 18 months. And that makes building that culture. There are people who have joined the organization that haven't met a colleague in person until more recently. And again, we know not all offices are fully open. I think in my mind, there are a couple of things that are really important in terms of doing that. As we talked about earlier, we are trying to build a working environment where people have options to choose where they work, flexibility to either work at home, work in the office, or a combination of both of that. I go to Harold's point. I think well-being has very much come to the fore right now. When we surveyed CEOs across the globe 6 months ago, interestingly, for the first time ever, health and well-being was one of the key risks and concerns that they put on their list, other than macroeconomic stability. So I think it has actually come to the C-suite agenda. And maybe COVID was the catalyst, basically, but that has changed. So I think making sure that you cater to the well-being of employees, whether they're working physically in your office or remotely, that is absolutely key. The second point I would say is around the whole performance reviews as well. People need clarity, and you build teams, you engender that culture where they have clarity that irrespective of how I work, there is a fairness in terms of how performance reviews are done. And the final point I would say is just making sure that you have a transparent mode with leaders communicating regularly to their employees in terms of what they're there for. The meaning of work has become a lot more important right now to many people, and that's why people leave jobs, because they just don't see what's the purpose of their work. So the meaning of work, well-being, making sure performance reviews are clear, and all of that, combination of that, I think helps build that culture in the organization.
Thank you. Actually, to your point about people never meeting their colleagues, so far since the beginning of the pandemic, the Financial Times, which is where I work, based out of Hong Kong, has had more than 180 people. We're not a big company, we're a big brand, but we've only got 2,400 employees globally, but more than 130 people have joined the company and left the company without even clapping eyes on a real live person. So, you know, it's a very, very odd byproduct of this new way of living and working.
Yeah, Angela, there's a story as well, right? People join and leave companies now via a courier company delivering a new laptop and removing the old laptop. And that's how basically joining and leaving has been taking place, of course, the last 2 years. So a lot of that face-to-face engagement interaction has been lost, and that's what we need to try to build. Of course, we're getting back to a bit more of a normal mode now. But just to emphasize the point that it has been very difficult over the course of the last 2 years.
I'm going to go through to you, Jim. I'm always a bit anxious, but when I can see you and hear you, I just want to ask you a question. What are your thoughts on this topic? I mean, how is 3M reinforcing and growing their culture, and also thinking about how teams can be effective together despite not seeing each other for such a long time? What's 3M's practice?
Right, and you know, I would start with, you know, I mean, collaboration is such a key, important component of our innovation model. I mean, we share, you know, we share across businesses, we share across technology. So you know, I would say, you know, I talked about this for, you know, 35 years about 3M. You know, we are built on collaboration.